The skies had turned black the day they came. Not from storm clouds, but from their ships. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, so massive they blocked out the sun. The world governments had gone silent after the first wave. No more broadcasts, no more orders, just silence. And then came the harvest. They didn't speak to us. They didn't reason. They just took. People called them Scourge. No real name, no known origin. The only thing clear was that they didn't see us as anything more than animals. Livestock, resources. My name is Carter, 43, former Marine, ex-con, construction foreman before the skies fell. Nothing special, no medals, no one to miss me when the world ended. But I survived the first wave. Maybe because I was stubborn. Maybe because I already knew how ugly the world could be before it was taken from us. The bastards landed outside New Denver. Big cratered fields turned entire forests to ash just to build those cold metallic towers. They didn't even bother hiding. They didn't need to. Within 3 days, resistance across North America had crumbled. Every organized group was either dead or repurposed. Repurposed, that was the polite term. In reality, they were dissecting people, studying us like we were lab rats, picking apart human minds and bodies to figure out what made us tick. I found one of their facilities 2 months in. I wasn't looking for it, just scavenging. Needed food, water, maybe a cigarette. I hadn't smoked in years, but when the world ends, you take comfort in old habits. The place was deep in the woods, hidden under the burned-out ruins of a town no one remembered. I followed the humming sound, like electricity but thicker, more alive. It led me to a tunnel, half natural, half carved with machinery we didn't build. What I saw down there? They had kids, strapped to tables, wires in their skulls, tubes in their arms. And those creatures, tall and sleek, wearing skin-tight armor that pulsed with color, just walking around like they were in a damn museum. One of them had a scalpel. No gloves, no emotion. He looked at that little boy like he wasn't even alive. I lost it. I don't remember pulling the trigger. Just the recoil, over and over. 5 of them dead. I took one of their guns, something sleek, shaped like a bone, humming with energy, and walked out dragging that boy over my shoulder. His name was Tommy. He couldn't talk. Probably never will again. But he clung to me like I was the last real thing left in the world. From that day on, I made it my mission. Not to survive, not to hide, but to kill them. One by one. I wasn't trained for this. I wasn't part of some special ops fantasy. I was just a man with a broken past, a rifle stolen from monsters, and a reason to fight. They thought Earth was beaten. They were wrong, because now they had me to deal with. And I wasn't stopping until every one of those silver-skinned freaks bled out on our soil. It took 3 days to get Tommy back to shelter. 3 days of moving at night, sleeping in drainage ditches, and avoiding patrol drones that hummed like angry hornets across the skies. I fed him scraps of canned beans and jerky, gave him sips of filtered rainwater. He never said a word, never cried, just stared, wide-eyed, hollow. He was maybe 8, skinny like a stray, clothes torn, skin bruised in places no kid should ever be touched. Every time I looked at him, I burned hotter, not just with rage, with purpose. I couldn't save everyone, I knew that. But I'd saved one. That had to mean something. My old camp was hidden beneath the ruins of an auto shop just off the I-76. Concrete basement, reinforced with steel beams we scavenged from a collapsed overpass. There were 4 others still alive when I got back. Men, mostly. Hardened. Survivors like me. We didn't do names anymore. No point. Most people didn't last long enough to need them. But I made them look at Tommy. I forced them, held his skinny arm up, showed the holes in his skin where they'd tapped his veins, the scar on the back of his neck where they'd shoved some kind of data rod in. "This is what they're doing," I said. "And we're just sitting here?" One of the guys, the oldest, with a gray patchy beard and eyes like gravel, spoke first. "What do you expect us to do, Carter? March in and take the bastards down with what, a shotgun and some bad luck?" I didn't answer, just pulled the alien weapon from my pack and tossed it onto the table. It hummed, glowing with that eerie blue pulse. Their eyes lit up like I'd just dropped God's own thunderstick. "You killed one of them?" another whispered. "5, I said. "That gun works. You hit center mass, they go down like anything else. Just scream more." They looked at each other. No one had done that. Not and come back. "I'm not asking you to follow," I said, voice low. "But I'm not hiding anymore. They made it personal." That night, I sat on watch duty, rifle across my lap. The wind howled through the shattered window frames. Somewhere far off, one of their towers let out a low, pulsing moan, like the earth was dying. Tommy slept curled up in an oil-stained blanket beside a rusted toolbox. He twitched in his sleep. No dreams, just replays of what he'd been through. And I knew. This war wasn't about soldiers or guns anymore. It was about giving the next generation a reason to breathe free air. The next strike was sloppy, desperate, but it sent a message. We hit one of their supply drones near the river. Rigged old propane tanks with nails, bleach, and car batteries, makeshift EMPs and shrapnel bombs. When the thing came in low, scanning for heat signatures, we lit it up. Didn't kill it, but we grounded it. Tore it open with crowbars. The tech inside was pulsing. Alive. Too advanced for us to understand, but that didn't matter. What mattered was the data crystal lodged in its spine. We didn't know what it held, but we knew someone who might. There was a guy out east, used to be a tech contractor for one of the Defense Corps. Rumors said he had a bunker full of scavenged gear, old satellites, black market scanners. They called him Stitch. Took us a week to reach him. The journey was hell. We lost 2 of ours to a roving Reaper squad, tall bastards with segmented armor and blades where hands should be. They didn't even shoot. They just sliced and moved on, left the bodies twitching in the mud. We burned them. No graves. Just fire. Stitch wasn't what I expected. Skinny, jittery, smelled like engine grease and vodka. But his mind was sharp. When I handed him the crystal, his eyes went wide like he'd seen a ghost. "This is command level," he muttered. "They don't just hand this out. You pull this from a drone?" I nodded. He ran it through a rig made from an old Dell motherboard, alien cabling, and something that looked suspiciously like a car battery wrapped in copper. The results made my blood run cold. The Scourge weren't here for conquest. They were here to farm. Earth wasn't a battleground, it was a livestock pen. We weren't the first, just the ripest. And the worst part? They'd already calculated how long until human resistance died off entirely. 3 years. 3 years until we were extinct. Unless we changed the math. Word spread fast. Stitch had a shortwave rig. Old school but powerful. We broadcast encrypted signals, warnings, rally points, updates. Most were ignored. But some weren't. Within a month, we had 25 fighters. Scarred, angry, desperate people who'd lost everything and had nothing left but hate. That was enough. We called ourselves Ash Dogs, born from the ashes, hunting in the ruins. We moved like shadows, hit their resource relays, ambushed patrols, stole weapons, learned their patterns. We studied them the way they studied us, and we bled for it. Every mission cost us. We lost good men. One to a plasma burst that turned his chest inside out. another to a gravity trap that folded his body like paper. One stepped on something we still can't identify. It didn't just kill him, it erased him, like he'd never existed. But for every one of us that fell, we made them pay double. And I became their boogeyman. They started using a name for me on their channels. The Black Scar. I didn't wear a uniform, didn't carry a banner, just a tattered black scarf I wrapped around my mouth to keep the ash out. It became a symbol. To them, fear. To us, fire. One night, Stitch picked up something strange on his scanner. A signal. Deep in the mountains. Old military code. From Earth. We followed it. Took 4 days through rough terrain. Mines, frostbite, a short firefight with scavers who'd gone feral and cannibal. But when we reached the coordinates, what we found floored us. A bunker, real military grade, buried beneath half a mountain, and inside, a man, alive, alone, cryo chamber. His name was Briggs, Colonel, last survivor of something called Operation Ember Veil. He woke up angry and confused, until I told him what happened. His face went dead. But then, focused. He didn't cry, didn't yell, just said, "Get me my goddamn boots." Inside that bunker were weapons, not just guns, prototypes, rail rifles, gravity mines, pulse blades, gear the public never knew existed. And intel. They'd been studying the Scourge for years before the invasion. They knew this day might come. And they left instructions. Plans, weaknesses. The creatures weren't gods. They weren't unstoppable. They were arrogant. And like all arrogant things, they could be broken. But only if someone hit them where it hurt. Briggs looked at me and said, "You've been fighting like a wolf pack. That ends now. It's time to strike like a hammer." I didn't disagree. He pointed to the largest tower in the Rockies. A comms node, their eye on the Western Hemisphere. He said, "We take that down. The whole system hiccups. They lose synchronization. For a few hours, Earth becomes invisible to them." "Long enough to do what?" I asked. He smiled, cold, empty. "Long enough to show them pain." We started planning the assault. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was war. We weren't just proving humanity could fight. We were about to prove we could win. The moment Colonel Briggs took command, things shifted. The Ash Dogs weren't just a band of scavengers and survivors anymore. We were soldiers. Soldiers with nothing left to lose, and for the first time, a clear target. Briggs turned the bunker into our war room. He mapped out every tower, every relay point, every patrol pattern he'd studied from years before the invasion. Somehow the government had known. Maybe not the when, but definitely the what. They'd prepped for this quietly, secretly, like they always did. Now, their secrets were our weapons. "This tower," Briggs said, jabbing a thick finger at the largest red mark on the map, "is their sync node. Think of it like their spinal cord for this side of the world. Take it out, and every unit west of the Mississippi starts acting blind. Not dead, but confused." He paused. Confusion buys time. Time to regroup, to strike, to win. Winning. That word felt strange in our mouths, like something we'd forgotten how to say. "We're going to hit them with everything," Briggs said. "But first, we train like we haven't yet bled." So we trained. Every day for 2 weeks. Morning drills, night ops, fire, maneuver, breach. The ones who couldn't shoot learned how to reload. The ones who couldn't run learned to cover flanks. Every hand had to matter. Even Tommy, who still didn't speak, ran messages between units. That boy never left my sight, and he clung to that damn scarf I gave him like it was armor. We learned their tech, too. Stitch dissected stolen weapons, figured out how to overload their energy cores. "Treat 'em like plasma grenades with attitude," he said. "But don't drop one unless you hate your arms." I studied the rifle I'd taken in the first weeks, learned its recoil, its heat pattern, how it whined before a charge. It was smooth, precise, too perfect. I started calling it mercy because it didn't give any. When the day came, it was cold, ice-crusted trees, snow covering the ash. We moved in squads, 10 men per team, staggered across 6 miles of high elevation. The comms tower sat in the shell of what used to be a ski resort. Their machines had twisted the place, metal and flesh fused into new architecture, a spiral of bone and alloy reaching up into the dead sky. Briggs called the tower the Needle, said it wasn't just for signal, it was a symbol, a dagger in Earth's skin. We pull it out, the whole infection bleeds. Our plan was simple: breach from below, sabotage the power source, and detonate. Except nothing ever goes according to plan in a real war. The climb up was murder. Thin air, ice-cracked ledges. One wrong step and you were gone. I lost 2 on the ascent. One slipped and broke his back. The other got snagged by a cloaked drone, ripped into the trees so fast he didn't even scream. We reached the ridge at midnight. Looking down at the tower made my blood chill. It pulsed with light, breathing like a living thing. There were creatures patrolling the base. Tall, spindly ones with spike hands and mirrored faces. You couldn't sneak past them, but you could distract them. Briggs gave the order. Team Beta opened fire from the opposite slope. Screams echoed through the trees, gunfire, explosions. The spindly bastards moved like wind, fast and unnaturally quiet, but they weren't expecting resistance this deep in their nest. That gave us a 30-second window. We hit the tower from the west side, breached a vent shaft just beneath a grotesque sculpture that looked like a human spine turned into scaffolding. Inside, it was warm, wet. The Scourge didn't build like us. Their tech wasn't just mechanical. It was organic, like crawling into the belly of a beast. Everything pulsed with light, veins carrying some kind of glowing fluid through the walls. I led the charge with mercy in my hands. First contact was immediate. 2 drones, humanoid but wrong. No eyes, just mouths sewn shut, faces stretched like wet cloth. They moved fast. One nearly gutted me before I dropped it with 3 blasts to the chest. Another lunged at Briggs. He ducked, drove a combat knife into its throat, and snapped its head back with the strength of a man who knew what dying felt like and refused to go quietly. We pushed forward, room by room, chamber by chamber. Every inch was a fight. They didn't just defend, they adapted. The closer we got to the core, the stronger they became. Bigger units, heavier armor, no hesitation. I watched a kid named Lenny, barely 20, get yanked off his feet by a 4-legged brute with arms like tree trunks. It crushed him like a can. Briggs hit it with a gravity mine, and the thing folded inward like it had been sucked into its own spine. We didn't stop. The core chamber was a hellscape. Spinning pylons, a massive vertical column of blue fire running through the center. It wasn't just power. It was data, energy, control. Everything ran through that flame. Stitch planted the charges while the rest of us held the line. I laid down cover fire, gunning down anything that moved. My arm went numb from the rifle's heat. Blood ran down my temple from shrapnel I didn't have time to feel. The Scourge screamed differently here. Not just noise, something deeper. Like the tower itself was aware. Like it knew we were gutting it from inside. One of them got past me, leapt over a barricade, claws bared, heading straight for Stitch. I tackled it mid-air. We rolled, blades scraping. It drove one into my side, but I kept punching until its skull cracked like glass. Pain hit me a second later. White hot. I couldn't stand, couldn't breathe. Briggs grabbed me by the collar, pulled me behind a console. "You're not dying today," he growled. "Is it done?" I asked, choking on blood. He nodded. Charges planted. We've got 90 seconds. We ran. Out through a side shaft, down through tunnels that collapsed as the tower began to scream. Yes, scream. Not a mechanical alert. A living wail that echoed across the valley like a banshee. We barely cleared the ridge when the needle exploded. It didn't go out in fire. It imploded, sucked inward like the world had swallowed it. A shockwave rolled through the mountains, knocking us flat. Trees shattered, snow lifted like dust. And then, silence. Real silence. No hum, no pulse, no drones. Just earth. For hours, we sat in the snow, bleeding, breathing. And then the signal came through. All units, this is free echo. Repeat, free echo. The Western grid is blind. We are not alone. Across the radio, voices broke through. Dozens, hundreds, fighters, survivors, resistance groups we never knew existed. They heard us, they saw the fire, and now they knew Earth wasn't beaten. Not yet. Because we were still fighting, and we'd just shown the bastards what we were made of. The explosion hadn't even settled before we knew something was wrong. Briggs was the first to notice it. We were back in the bunker, bodies aching, bandaging wounds, half delirious from adrenaline and blood loss. We should have been celebrating. "We hit them hard," Stitch kept muttering. "Blind as bats out west now. That'll keep their systems down for days, weeks even." But Briggs just stood by the comms table, jaw clenched, arms crossed, staring at the blinking signals coming in from all across the west. "They're not regrouping," he said. "They're redirecting." I stepped beside him, clutching my ribs where the medjool still hadn't taken full effect. "What do you mean?" Briggs pointed at the central feed. "They're not panicking. They're not confused. They're focused." "What are they focusing on?" I asked, though I already had a sinking feeling. Briggs turned to me, his eyes cold. "Us." It started small. We thought we were ahead of it. The first patrol came 2 days after we took down the tower. Just 2 drones, floating low, scanning for movement. We scrapped them without alerting the rest. Didn't think much of it. Standard sweep, maybe a delayed response. But then the second patrol came. 4 drones, heavier armor, coordinated movement. That's when Briggs gave the order to shut down all open comms. "They're triangulating," he said. "They know where the broadcast came from." We went dark. No more signals, no more calls for unity. We vanished again. Just like before. Except this time, the dogs were hunting us. They hit our forward camp first. 20 miles northeast, deep woods, camouflaged, silent, rigged with early warning traps. We'd set it up as a fallback point in case we ever had to run. It was gone within hours. A scout made it back, barely. Smoke-blackened skin, eyes hollow. "They came out of nowhere," he gasped. "Big ones, 8 legs, plasma cutters. Didn't even scan. Just burned everything." He died an hour later, internal bleeding. No chance to save him. That's when it became clear. We hadn't just pissed them off. We'd made them bleed. And now they wanted to show us what real pain felt like. Briggs didn't panic. He never did. But the bunker got quieter every day. The air got heavier. People stopped smiling. Even Tommy, who barely understood what was happening, stopped following me around. Instead, he sat by the old doorway with a loaded pistol on his lap. Didn't even flinch when someone walked by. "He's not a kid anymore," Stitch whispered once. "They took that from him." I didn't respond. I couldn't. Because deep down, I knew we were all kids in this, pretending to be soldiers in a war we weren't built for. The only difference between us and him was time. The next attack was surgical. They didn't bomb us, didn't storm in with shock troops. They sent one. Just one. Briggs called it a Reaper Prime. 7 feet tall, metallic gray skin that shimmered like oil in water. Its face was a mask of nothing. No mouth, no eyes, just an ever-shifting surface that pulsed with symbols. It walked into the southern perimeter like it didn't care if we saw it. By the time we reacted, it had already slaughtered 3 of ours. I hit it with mercy. 5 shots, center mass. It staggered but didn't fall. Instead, it turned toward me with a tilt of its head, almost like it recognized me. Then it spoke. Not in words. In pain. Every voice it had ever killed poured out of it, screaming, begging, pleading. Hundreds of voices, all stacked on top of each other, children, women, men, soldiers, mothers, all fused into a chorus of agony that cut through bone. We dropped our weapons. Not because we wanted to, because our brains couldn't handle the sound. Tommy was the one who saved us. He didn't scream, didn't cry. He just pulled the trigger, a clean headshot, right into the center of that warped, mirrored face. The sound stopped. The Reaper staggered, reached out like it couldn't understand what had just happened, and then collapsed into itself, a swirl of light and dust. Tommy sat down, breathing heavy, gun still in his tiny hands. I wanted to say something. But what do you say to a kid who just saved your life by killing a goddamn nightmare? Briggs said it for me. He's one of us now. The next day we moved. No speeches, no drama, just the quiet understanding that we weren't safe anymore. We split into units, 6 per team, mobile, quiet. The bunker was compromised, maybe not yet, but soon. So we became the wind. We vanished into the wilderness, into the cities, into the places they hadn't fully mapped. We didn't fight head-on anymore. We ambushed. We misled. We made them chase ghosts. Briggs called it bleeding the machine. Make them spend more to kill less. Let their resources drip dry. For weeks it worked. We cut cables, blew convoys, lured patrols into minefields. Every kill felt like a victory, every escape, a miracle. But war isn't made of miracles. It's made of pain. They caught Stitch 3 weeks into the retreat. He got careless, tapped into a node for data, forgot to cover the signal spike. They found him within an hour. We never saw the body. But we heard the message. They broadcasted it on every frequency they could reach. Stitch, stripped to the waist, tied to a metal chair. A voice, one of theirs, translated into garbled English. Your minds are not sacred. Your bodies are not unique. You are biomass, fuel. This one screamed for his species. Then he stopped. All of you will stop. Then they tore him apart. No emotion, no hate, just efficiency. I smashed the radio. My knuckles bled. Briggs didn't stop me. We don't mourn like they do, he said quietly, but we remember. I picked up Mercy and nodded. Let's make them remember too. The final straw came when they hit the caravan. Civilians, survivors, people trying to escape west while the Scourge's eye was still confused. We'd organized it. 5 vehicles, 2 armored trucks, children, old men, nurses, families. I wasn't with them. I was hitting a relay point 2 towns over. By the time I got back, the snow was red. Everything burned. Bodies everywhere. Burned into the steel, into the dirt, into each other. They didn't just kill them. They erased them. Message received. That night, I sat with Briggs. We've been surviving, I said. But surviving isn't enough. Briggs lit a cigarette. The first I'd seen him smoke since I met him. You want to go back on offense? Not want, need. He nodded slowly. There's one target left that might shift the tide. He pointed to a point on the map we hadn't dared to touch. Their birthing station, half alive, half tech, produces new soldiers by the hour. How guarded? I asked. Worse than the tower. Do we have a chance? He looked me dead in the eyes. No. I stood anyway. I'm going. He crushed the cigarette under his boot. Then I'm going with you. This wouldn't be a raid. This would be vengeance. This would be war. It took us 4 days to reach the outskirts of the Scourge's birthing station. 4 days through blackened valleys, ash-covered plains, and ruins filled with memories of what Earth used to be. Cities were nothing more than cracked bones under a choking sky. Every building, every home, reeked of something gone. Hope, maybe. Humanity. Briggs and I traveled light. Just 2 packs, enough rations for a week, and weapons we trusted more than our own limbs. He carried an old pulse shotgun with a heat regulator he'd patched himself. I kept Mercy slung over my back, the alien rifle buzzing faintly against my spine like a reminder that I'd made it this far by stealing death from the enemy's hands. We didn't speak much on the way. We didn't need to. By now, words had become a luxury we couldn't afford. The birthing station was nestled in what used to be a national park. Beautiful once, before the Scourge turned it into something obscene. The trees were long gone, replaced by pulsating towers of muscle-like tissue and chrome, curving in unnatural shapes like arteries feeding into a monstrous heart. We spotted it from a cliff on the 4th night. At the center stood the core, tall, cylindrical, surrounded by scaffolding that looked grown, not built. It pulsed every few seconds with a dull red glow, like a breathing lung that never exhaled. Around it, drones floated in lazy spirals. No windows, no openings, just layers and layers of biomechanical walls that leaked steam and noise, wet, mechanical sounds that made your stomach twist. "That's not a factory," I muttered. "It's a womb." Briggs didn't blink. "And we're gonna carve it open." We waited 2 days, scouted patrol patterns, logged shift rotations, watched how the creatures moved. Graceful, too fluid, like they were swimming in air. Then, at dusk on the 2nd day, we found our hole. A weak point in the structure, ventilation pipe disguised as a cracked ridge near the base. We moved in at nightfall, under cloud cover. No drones spotted us. Inside, it was worse. The air was thick and wet. Everything dripped. Every surface pulsated like it was alive, and it smelled, chemical and organic, like burnt rubber and blood. Briggs led the way with a thermal scanner. I watched our backs. We moved slow. Every sound echoed too loud. My breathing, my boots, even the clicking of Mercy's energy readout. I swear I could hear the walls listening. 1/2 a mile in, we reached the first chamber. Pods, hundreds of them, stacked to the ceiling, each one with something inside, half-formed Scourge soldiers, floating in amniotic fluid, twitching as their bodies grew under pulsing light. It was like staring into the future, one we had to destroy. Briggs pulled out a satchel of pulse charges. "We do this quiet," he said. "Plant them at load-bearing joints, then get to the core. We take that out, this whole place collapses." We split up. I went left, he went right. I planted the first charge under a vat that looked like a womb wrapped in bone. The second near a conveyor system moving full-grown soldiers down a tunnel. That's when the lights changed. Red. Bright. Flashing. "They know," I hissed into the comm. Briggs didn't answer. Then I heard it. The scream. Not human. Not alien either. Something in between. Something that had learned how to mimic pain. I ran. Dodged pipes. Slid under mechanical arms that jerked to life. The station had activated its defense protocols. Doors slammed behind me. Steam hissed from cracks in the wall. I reached Briggs by the time 2 of them cornered him. Not scouts. These were enforcers. Taller, bulkier, their limbs crackling with heat. Their faces didn't show rage. They didn't have faces. Just a blank panel that vibrated with sound. One had Briggs by the neck. I didn't think. I fired. Mercy bucked in my hands, blue light cutting through the dark like a scalpel. One shot tore the creature's arm off. The second blew its core open. Briggs dropped, coughing blood, but still alive. I dragged him into the service shaft as the second enforcer charged. We rolled through a closing vent just as its blade missed us by inches. We didn't stop moving until we hit the core chamber. And God help us, it was worse than we imagined. The core wasn't mechanical. It was a creature, tethered to a wall of nerve-like cables, fused to the structure, its body spread across the floor like melted flesh. It was humanoid, barely. Maybe once. Its face twitched with a dozen emotions per second. Fear, rage, confusion, sorrow, all of them, none of them. It looked at us. I swear to whatever's left up there, it looked right at us, and it whispered in our minds. We are one. Briggs didn't hesitate. He tossed me the last pulse charge and limped toward the core. I'll draw them, he said. You plant it. You get out. I shook my head. We both make it. We won't, he said quietly. But you can. I grabbed his shoulder. You sure? He smiled, teeth blood-stained. I didn't crawl out of a freezer to die quiet. He ran toward the core, shotgun blazing. The chamber erupted with movement, drones dropping from the ceiling, defense systems clicking to life. While they swarmed him, I moved fast, slipped behind the pumping nerve lines, found the heart of the creature and slammed the charge into its base. Its voice screamed in my skull. You will not stop birth. I pressed the detonator. No, I whispered. We'll stop your whole damn species. And then I ran. The explosion was different from before. It didn't implode. It expanded. A wave of heat and light that blew out the walls, turned organic steel to dust, vaporized every pod, every soldier, every hope they had of replacing their numbers. The mountain shook. I barely made it outside. I hit the snow with flames chasing my back, lungs burning, vision white. And then, nothing. I woke up a day later, half buried in snow, ash in my mouth. The station was gone. Just a crater. I coughed blood. My leg was broken, maybe a few ribs. But I was alive. Briggs wasn't. There was no trace of him, just a scorched patch of ground where he made his last stand. I buried a piece of his shotgun in the snow. Didn't have a grave, didn't need one. The mountain would remember. And so would I. When I returned to what was left of the ash dogs, I didn't speak much. Didn't need to. They saw my face, saw the limp, saw the scorch marks on my gear, and they knew we'd struck the heart. The scourge would feel that. And though they'd come back harder, now they knew. Earth didn't roll over. Earth didn't surrender. Earth bites back. The world didn't change overnight, but the air felt different. After we destroyed the birthing station, the skies went still. For the first time in months, the scourge ships stopped humming overhead. No more patrols sweeping highways, no more drones crawling through forests or gliding over rooftops like vultures looking for stragglers. Silence blanketed the world like snowfall. At first, we thought maybe, just maybe, they were retreating. Maybe Briggs's sacrifice and that core explosion had broken their nerve. But deep down, I knew better. Predators don't retreat when they're wounded. They regroup. They adapt. Then they come to finish the kill. We set up base in the ruins of an old prison outside what used to be Cheyenne. The walls were thick concrete, scarred with burn marks and centuries of graffiti, still intact. It wasn't much, but it was a fortress. And we needed one. Dozens of scattered cells across the region had heard about the birthing station. Survivors were trickling in, beaten, starved, carrying nothing but broken gear and shattered pride. Men and women who'd lost everything but their will to fight. We patched them up, armed them, fed them if we had extra. and we waited. I tried to keep busy, but the pain was getting worse. My ribs had never healed right. The shrapnel in my thigh throbbed every time I moved. But worse was the thing growing under my skin, the mark from where the core's psychic scream had hit me. Briggs never lived long enough for it to spread. I wasn't that lucky. It started as a bruise under my collarbone. Purple, branching like a tree root. After a week, it shimmered under moonlight. Stitch would have called it a neurological echo if he were still alive. I didn't know what it was. I just knew it made me wake up gasping at night, whispering words I didn't understand. The scourge had touched me, and something inside was listening. They returned on the 12th day. Not with ships, not with drones. With something worse. The sky cracked open like a rotten egg. Black clouds peeled back to reveal a single vessel, titanic, circular, silent. No sound, no exhaust, just presence. It floated over the Rockies like a judgment. Then the ground began to shake. They weren't sending soldiers anymore, they were sending gods. We called them harvest kings. Only 3 ever landed. That we know of. Each one over 12 feet tall. Humanoid only in shape. Muscle-wrapped exoskeletons fused with armor and symbols that moved like liquid across their skin. They didn't speak. Didn't even acknowledge us. They walked into cities and erased them. Denver vanished within an hour. No fire, no plasma, just silence. Like someone had turned down the volume on the universe and deleted every trace of life. Whole blocks turned to dust. People frozen in place, then crumbled like statues in a windstorm. When we got the footage from a scout drone, no one spoke for hours. "We're not fighting monsters anymore," someone whispered. "We're fighting extinction itself." They were right. I made a choice that night. The war was never going to be won by waiting. Not anymore. The scourge had taken everything. My home, my family, my brothers, Briggs, Stitch, half my body. I wasn't going to let them take what was left. I called a meeting. Every fighter, every leader, every soul willing to bleed for a future they'd never see. And I laid it out for them. "We're not survivors anymore," I said, standing under the cold prison lights. "We're soldiers." They didn't cheer. They just nodded. Because cheering was for people who had time for hope. We didn't. The plan was suicidal. We knew that going in. We'd identified a weak point in the Scourge mothership's orbit. Every 48 hours, it dropped into low atmosphere to siphon geothermal energy from the mountains. During that window, its outer shield retracted for 13 minutes, long enough for a hit, if we could get close. Stitch's backup rig, one of the last tech caches he left, contained a prototype warhead built during the early defense days. Nuclear payload, wrapped in stolen alien hardware. Portable. Barely. Powered by a compressed core of something that shouldn't have existed on Earth. We called it the Tooth. Briggs once said, "If we can't rip their throat out, we can at least make them choke." This was that moment. We moved out with 30 men. Only 30. The rest were needed to protect the fallback camps. Children, wounded, the last pieces of humanity we had left. We'd be their distraction, their hammer. The plan was simple. Get into the mountains, climb to the relay site, launch the warhead with a vertical rail we'd modified from a mining lift. Time it with the next descent. Then run like hell. I carried the Tooth on my back. It hummed like a heartbeat the entire way. The climb was brutal. Avalanches, collapsing cliffs, sub-zero wind cutting into our bones. One man froze to death on the second day. Another slipped into a gorge and didn't stop falling. Still we climbed. Because this wasn't about survival anymore. This was about dignity. Even if we failed, especially if we failed, we wanted them to know we didn't die begging. We reached the summit an hour before dusk, set up the rail, calibrated the targeting, spliced alien tech into rusted bolts, and prayed nothing exploded early. And we waited. I sat at the edge of the cliff, staring out across the dying world. The wind carried ash from a city we'd never name. The sky pulsed faintly with red streaks. Beside me, a boy from the Ash Dogs lit a cigarette with shaking hands. "You think this matters?" he asked. I nodded. "Even if it doesn't, they'll remember it." He chuckled bitterly. "I'll take that." The ship came on schedule. It filled the sky like a falling moon. Silent, monstrous, casting a shadow that turned the snow black. I gave the order. The warhead launched with a blast that shattered the cliffside. Light streaked up into the sky like a spear hurled by God himself. It hit. Director. The sky screamed. No explosion, just light. A pulse of white so bright it erased the night. The ship jerked in the sky like it had been struck in the spine. Then it began to fall. Not crash, fall, like a whale drifting downward. Its shields peeled off in strips. Fires sparked across its hull. We had done it. But we had also awakened something worse. The Harvest King arrived minutes later. It dropped from the ship like a stone. No parachute, no flare, just impact. The mountain cracked. Men screamed. Then it rose, taller than the rest, cloaked in something that shimmered like glass. It didn't speak. It just moved, fast. I watched it cut through 10 men in seconds. No weapons, just speed and force. Arms like blades, eyes like stars. I tried to run, but it saw me, felt me. The mark on my collarbone burned like fire, and it knew me. I don't remember much after that. Just pain. And silence. I woke up in a tent 3 days later. Leg gone, half my face burned, chest wrapped in nanocloth that barely held my insides together. The warhead worked. The ship was crippled, but the Harvest King survived. Barely. And now it's hunting me. Personally. Because somehow, whatever was inside that scourge creature, the one fused to the birthing station, it left something behind. Inside me. And now I hear its voice at night, not screaming, speaking, teaching. The war isn't over, but something inside me has changed. Maybe I'm dying. Maybe I'm becoming something else. I don't know. All I know is this. They thought Earth was broken, but I'm still here, and I've got one more fight left. The pain didn't go away. It changed. At first it felt like fire. Raw, blinding, chewing its way through my bones. But after the third night, the burn began to settle into something deeper, like a second pulse beneath my skin, like something inside me had grown roots and was beginning to spread. I didn't tell the others at first. Hell, I didn't even tell myself. I wrapped the wound, grit my teeth, and convinced myself that it was just trauma. Just another scar. But deep down, I knew better. The mark on my collarbone, what had started as a purple root, was now glowing faintly under my skin. Not bright, but steady, like it had found a rhythm, like it was alive. I stared at it in the mirror every night, waiting for it to do something. It always stared back. The camp had moved underground, abandoned subway tunnels beneath a collapsed city center. Flooded in places, cracked in others, but deep enough that the skies above didn't matter. After the railgun hit crippled the Scourge mothership, their retaliation hadn't stopped. If anything, it got smarter, more precise. They stopped burning towns. They started targeting people, leaders, organizers, comms runners, medics, anyone helping keep resistance alive. It wasn't a war anymore. It was a purge. But somehow, they hadn't touched me. Not yet. Even though I should have been their first target. And that's what scared the others more than anything. "Something's wrong with you," said Nadia, our lead medic, one night as she adjusted the tubing on my chest. She didn't say it with fear. Or judgment. Just the quiet weariness of someone who's seen too much death to be surprised anymore. "You've got Energy signatures in your bloodstream I've never seen. Not even in infected. I didn't reply. She frowned. It's not spreading like a disease. It's sinking. Like it's part of you now. I closed my eyes. Maybe it is. Should we be worried? You should always be worried, I said, forcing a half smile. But I didn't believe it, because even I didn't know who or what I was becoming. The dreams started on the 4th night. Not nightmares, visions of the birthing station, of the scourge ships, of stars I'd never seen but somehow recognized, alien landscapes, wars fought thousands of years ago, planets consumed, civilizations erased, and something else, a voice. You are not chosen. You are inherited. I would wake drenched in sweat, pulse hammering in my neck, memories slipping away like smoke in wind. Then I'd look at my collarbone and see the glow had grown again, spreading toward my shoulder, wrapping faint lines down my ribs like veins of light. It wasn't killing me. It was preparing me. 3 days later, we got word from a scout post near the ruins of Chicago. The last Harvest King was moving. Directly toward us. We had maybe 24 hours before it reached the tunnel system. That meant we had a choice: scatter and run, or stand and fight. Most wanted to run. Who could blame them? The last time a Harvest King appeared, it erased Denver. But something inside me said no. Not just instinct. Certainty. This wasn't a coincidence. It was coming for me. And I was done running. I called the remaining fighters together. There weren't many left, maybe 40. Men and women worn thin from loss, carrying more grief than ammo. But they still had teeth. I told them the truth. About the mark, the core, the dreams. They didn't speak. Just watched. Some were scared, some were angry, but most just looked tired. "You're turning into one of them?" one man asked finally. I met his eyes. "Number, I'm turning into something they're afraid of." That got a few nods. Then I said the second part. "I'm going to face the Harvest King. Alone." That caused a reaction. "No chance," said Nadia. "We stand together. We fight together." "You don't understand," I said quietly. "This isn't about guns anymore. It's about connection. I can feel it inside me. It's not just part of them. It's ahead of them. Older, meaner, and it's angry." They stared. So I lifted my shirt and showed them. The glow now reached across half my chest, branching lines, pulsing slow, steady. No one spoke after that. They didn't need to. We set the trap just north of the central terminal, an open atrium beneath a collapsed skyscraper, wide enough for a confrontation, tall enough to collapse if needed. They rigged the walls with charges, old-world explosives tied to proximity sensors, in case things went bad. I walked in at sunset, alone, carrying nothing but mercy and the fire eating away at my insides. And then it arrived. The Harvest King stepped into the atrium like it had always belonged there. It was taller than before, armored like a cathedral. Its face was a mask of light, ever-shifting symbols glowing across the surface. It looked at me and stopped. I felt the hum in my bones. The mark on my chest pulsed. The glow flared. It saw me, and for the first time, it hesitated. I spoke first. "You know what this is, don't you?" I asked, pointing at the mark. The symbols on its face stopped moving. "You remember what it means." It took a step forward, then another. I didn't raise my weapon, not yet. Then it spoke, not out loud, in my head. "You are not human. You are error." I laughed. "Maybe, but I'm your last one." It charged, faster than any human could see. But I wasn't just human anymore. I moved like the dream visions had shown me. My arm raised mercy before my brain told it to. The shot hit its shoulder, blowing a chunk of armor off in a spray of glowing ichor. It staggered, not from pain, from shock. I pressed the advantage, fired again, Again, each shot echoed through the ruins like thunder. Then it caught me, lifted me off the ground like a rag doll, drove me into the concrete. My bones snapped, but the glow on my chest flared and the pain dissolved. I roared, not in fear, in rage, and I drove my fist, now glowing with the same alien light, into its chest. The impact cracked the mask. The symbols shattered, and for the first time, it screamed. Not words, not thoughts, just fear. I collapsed, bleeding, gasping, but the thing in front of me was worse off. Its form was breaking down, melting, dissolving, unraveling like thread pulled from cloth. It looked at me one last time and whispered, "We remember what you are." Then it died. The others found me minutes later, barely alive, but smiling, because now we had proof. The Scourge weren't gods. They could bleed, they could fear. And something inside me made them feel that fear. I don't sleep anymore. The dreams are always there, louder now, but I understand them. I see their history, their failures. The thing they once tried to destroy and instead buried. Inside me, whatever it is, it's waking up. And it's not done yet. They tried to keep me in a medical bed after the Harvest King fell. For 2 days, I fought through blackouts, seizures, and memory storms. My skin blistered, burned, healed, and blistered again. The lines across my chest kept glowing brighter. They had spread to my spine now, creeping up my neck like a second nervous system. Nadia injected painkillers. They didn't do a thing. My blood wasn't blood anymore. She knew it. I knew it. It moved different, carried things it shouldn't. Particles that shifted shape under microscopes, responding to stimuli before it even happened. Whatever was inside me wasn't just adapting. It was learning. By the 4th day, I was walking again. Not normally. My leg was still wrecked, ribs cracked, but I could move. And the pain had faded into something. Colder. Focused. The others watched me differently now. Not with sympathy, not even with fear. Reverence, like I wasn't Carter anymore, like I was something else. They didn't say it out loud, but they didn't have to. I was becoming the weapon. I spent the next 2 nights outside the tunnel perimeter, staring up at the sky. The Scourge mothership, the same one we'd struck weeks ago, was still floating there, broken and bleeding. It hadn't moved since the Harvest King fell, but it hadn't left either. And that worried me more than anything. You don't let your prey wound you, humiliate you, and then walk away. You wait, you plan, you strike. On the 7th day, the mothership opened. Not in orbit, not above a city, above us. The clouds peeled back like rotten fruit. The air tasted metallic. We could feel the change before we heard the sound. Low frequency, pressure in our bones, skulls buzzing, and then came the broadcast. End this cycle. The voice didn't come through radios, it came through us. Every person in the resistance dropped to their knees, clutching their heads, vomiting, screaming, praying to gods long dead. Every person but me. I stood. My mark pulsed like a beacon. And I understood the voice. It wasn't speaking to all of us. It was speaking to me. The Scourge weren't just an invading force. They were a cleansing system, an ancient mechanism sent to wipe out civilizations infected by what they called deviation. What is deviation? Emotion? Choice? The free will? Somewhere in the galaxy's distant past, they'd been human too. Once. Before they traded chaos for order. Before they turned themselves into machines of balance and erasure. They saw emotion as the virus. But something happened during their evolution. A fragment broke off. A thought, a scream, a refusal. That scream had survived. It passed like a shadow through systems, DNA, language, trauma, And when the birthing station core screamed into me, when I touched its mind, I became its last echo. I wasn't the weapon. I was the counter-virus. I walked into the main hall that night and told them what I knew, that the Scourge wasn't just here to enslave or destroy, they were here to cleanse. But they hadn't expected resistance from their past. They hadn't expected me, because what lived inside me was older than even they remembered, and it was waking up. I told them I was going up there, alone, straight into the mothership, to finish it. Nadia stepped forward, hands trembling. You might not come back. I looked her in the eyes. I don't think I was ever meant to. We had one transport left, an old orbital shell dropper from the early days of the war, jury-rigged, shaky, barely sealed. I climbed in with a sidearm and nothing else. My body, whatever it was now, would do the rest. The launch was hell, soundless and shaking. Atmo broke like glass. The planet shrank beneath me, and then I was inside their space. The ship accepted me like blood to a wound. No defense systems, no guards, just long, empty corridors made of memory and light. I walked. I passed images burned into the walls, scenes from Earth's past, soldiers marching, fires rising, cities falling. But they were watching from the outside, cataloging, not judging, just preparing. I kept walking. I felt its presence before I saw it, the heart of the ship, a chamber the size of a stadium. Floating in the center, a shape like a cocoon, wrapped in nerve light, pulsing with a heartbeat that wasn't mine, but felt familiar. And then the final voice came. You are the failure we abandoned. Why have you come? I stepped forward. I'm not yours. You were ours before you ever knew choice. I know what I am now. Then you understand why you must die. I smiled. Maybe. But I didn't come to ask. I raised my arm. The mark lit up, and the ship screamed. The scream wasn't pain, it was recognition. Something inside me surged forward, memories that weren't mine, weapons I'd never trained with, knowledge of things no man should know. And I gave it everything. I unleashed the scream from the birthing station, from the broken past, from the deviation they tried to bury. It hit the heart like lightning through bone. The cocoon cracked. And from inside, it didn't die. It began. I don't remember how I got back. The next thing I saw was Earth below me, bright and burning, real. The ship was gone. Just gone. No crash, no wreckage, vanished like dust in the wind. And me? I woke up in the dirt. Mark still glowing, but calm, not expanding. Not fading, just present. The war didn't end in a bang. It ended in silence. Their machines stopped moving. Their structures crumbled. No more patrols, no more harvest kings, just Earth. Wounded. Still here, still breathing. The survivors say I changed that day. Not just my body, my eyes, my voice. Like the old Carter was gone and something new had taken root. Maybe they're right. I still bleed, still walk, but I hear things they don't. I see stars that haven't been born yet. I dream in languages no one's spoken in 1,000 millennia. But I remember what matters. Briggs, Stitch, Tommy, the Ash Dogs, the ones who didn't make it, and the ones still rebuilding. I don't pretend to be a hero. I'm just a man who carried a scream far enough to make monsters afraid of their own past. They thought Earth was beaten. They thought we were finished. But we reminded them, we are chaos. We are resistance. We are human. And we don't die quiet.